Willy, and I'm
Hi,
really
thank you.
excited to have you here. And again, our friendship goes back to days in China when you were very kind to, extend the invitation to go to Hangzhou and see the Chinese startup ecosystem. And I'm really happy that we get to do this and pick your insights and pick your brain on different concepts. So I guess I just want to kickstart this by asking you. I know that you started your career in NUS as a research fellow. How did you get from there to where you are right now? Where you are chairman of SG100 Foundation. You are, leading charge at Prudential. So just share with us, like, how was that journey, and how did that growth mindset play a part in your journey?
Yeah, of course, research, if you know, is a very inert kind of work where you really, sits behind a computer doing a lot of simulation work, and you probably you're not able to scale. Even if you have an idea, you can incubate it, but I think the scaling part is very difficult. So I decided to go on still researching, but in personal finance, because I felt Singapore was in the right mode and the right place to do personal finance because of whatever you heard about Singapore in terms of we mean what we say, integrity, honor. So this is a place where people are willing to trust people, where there's a high level of trust. And I believe if coupled with the right sales concept and even financial model, we are able to help people to understand complex things into simpler form. And that's what we urge to do. And in fact, because of the agency platform, we are able to scale the business, whether it is sales and marketing, whether it is management, whether it is personal development. This is where I leverage actually on one a giant that's backing me, like Prudential, to help me scale a business to become like a vehicle for me to go from point A to point B. And of course, over the years, after the past 10 years as an agency director with Prudential, I felt, well, maybe it's time that we do something for the community. And it happened that it hits me when SG50 came about. And yeah, we have a good 50 years, but how are we going to continue for the next 50 towards 100? And we've seen a lot of youth now having different aspirations from the day when I graduated. So I always say the father and son pair of the year 2020 is very different from a father-son pair in the year 2000. Just simply the demographic patterns have changed, social norms have changed, and definitely technology disruption, and definitely a lot of liquidity now, and a lot of stimulus. So that require we to rethink financial models and financial planning. So I thought, since we are in for a change, we better make sure we are always grouping together and really doing things together, because I recognize that being a person alone is very lonely. You are limited by no matter how thick, how smart, or how hardworking you think you are. You only have 24 hours. You still need 8 hours sleep. You still need to spend time with family. There's really some sort of things that we need to do things together. So I had a very strong urge to really get good people to work together, have the same common vision. Then we can move far. Yeah. And you talk about a growth mindset is when you do a business, it's like if you don't grow, basically, you're working against gravity. If you don't grow, you stagnate. Basically, you're going to be disrupted, whether it's by sure boredom of the agency model, or whether it is the customer gets sick of the same things you do over and over again. And the sad truth is, of course, Benjamin Franklin said this: when you keep doing things the same thing you're doing and you expect a different result, that's actually a most crazy thing that you can expect. So we decided to test out different ways of doing things. We decided how to have a high touch point with client. We decided to give a platform like SG100 for people who want to give back, who want to help in nation building, want to have leadership role. So we give this opportunity to all these young people to showcase their talents, their ideas, and able to execute them with certain resources backup, and probably more importantly, the mentorship to fulfill this, to be rewarded as well, to be recognized. I think this is what a talented person actually wants, to find the right organization, to find the right boss, to enable him to fulfill his lifetime potential. I think his whole life, most people are always looking for this. And we hope here, it's SG100, whether it's my agency or the SG100 Foundation, we hope to give this opportunity to all these young people. Yeah. Right. So that is the kind of growth mindset. And then when you grow, you just like flying a kite. Initially, when you try to fly a kite in the sky, it's very difficult. It will always drop. But once you have when you reach a certain orbit or threshold, you realize the wind, the forces of nature will make it very easy for your kite to fly in the sky and continue to test new heights.
Yeah.
So I think we need a lot of young people actually need that kind of mentorship to bring them to a certain level of orbit, and they can continue in orbit or even further than. So life is about movement as well. So you talk about, okay, of course now there's a lot of deglobalization, but I believe I still can't see how we can still be so isolated. Of course we can stay isolated in the past, but now that it seems, globalization is here to stay. Free market economy has definitely helped, because it's EU's, but it has also done, it's good. So especially now when the coronavirus is rampant, we see a lot of people deglobalizing Singapore. They start to isolate themselves. They even refuse to get people to get out, either blocking people coming in, and they decided to have their own supply of even your face mask. So they say, I'm not going to depend on you. I'm not going to risk that you're not going to export the goods I'm supposed to get from you. I decided to have my own supply line. So the whole supply chain of resources and goods is now put to test just because of a virus. That we realize, hey, sometimes we need to be getting back to be self-sufficient. And especially Singapore, we import almost everything, even our foreign talent. So I thought this is something that we got to learn. In some way, we need to be self-sufficient. In some way, we need to learn not to be reliant on one source of products and services. Yeah. And this is where the opportunity comes. When you see certain things, then you realize there's a certain gap in terms of the aggregate of demand and supply. And that's where exactly, if you can identify the gap and you are the one who is able to bridge that, yeah, you create real practical value. And it's very fair that you get yourself prosperous. Yeah. You get wealth. And from there, of course, wealth is not just a personal recognition or achievement. It's how you because at the end of the day, money is just a commodity. If seriously money can solve problems, there won't be so many problems in the world. Yeah. Let's face it, if really money can really solve, we got billions of liquidity. You got your QE1, QE2, QE3. If really money can solve problems, how come we still have so many problems in the world? So I decided actually that money is really just a commodity. How are we really going to put the resources to good use? How are we going to find the talents? How are we going to have a different mindset and a framework of solving problems? And that's where your money flows to the right direction and it solves that problem. Great. But of course now we look at climate change. We have a huge issue in Singapore. We of course we arm ourselves with 100 billion budget to fight the climate change, sea level rising. We're getting hotter. Antarctica is losing its ice faster than ever. All this has a huge repercussion for our next 3-4 generations. It may not happen in mine, but definitely in the next 100 years, you're going to see a lot of changes which we already witnessed in the Australian bushfire. Most of the typhoons are coming, and then the winters are delayed. And all of these are disrupting even our climate, and then that leads to even our crops, our harvest being disrupted. Yeah. So there are certain things that if we want to continue the legacy, we continue to make planet Earth a right place that we need to stay in, not just on whether we still keep our sovereignty. I think there's a lot of young people now who are looking into sustainability. Whether, for sure, I don't want a case whereby my grandchildren blame me as an old man that, hey, you are the one who screwed up my life. You are the one who screwed up the earth. You and maybe my dad, my grand. I don't want to be a war between old people and the young. I foresee some of these things happening because somebody has to be responsible for certain things, because a 15-year-old will claim that, well, we are just about to embark our life and you actually screw us up. You take away all the resources, you get us into a total climate disaster. Yeah. That we can't function anymore. Yeah. And with that, it is going to be a total revolution. I felt this is something we need to address, certainly. So whether it's by technology, whether it's by human efforts, whether it's budget, we need to seriously look at sustainability. Yeah. And I think it's not just a sexy marketing angle or marketing campaign, but it is something definitely very tangible and important for us, to maintain Singapore, whether it's Singapore or planet Earth. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, I know
where the reason why.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why last year we actually had this Hangzhou Shanghai trip. In fact, if not for the coronavirus, we should be going somewhere this year. In fact, I'm looking at Dubai where there's a World Expo. I don't know how the World Expo is going to affect. Actually, 2020, you have your Tokyo Olympics, you got your Euro 2000, and you got your World Expo Dubai, and so many miscellaneous events that's going on. That's where I felt, wow, this coronavirus could have come at the worst time, really. In fact, I've already prepared a certain budget for to sponsor a group of you to look at the World Expo Dubai, which I felt was building future communities and looking at sustainability. And I really, really hope this sustainability thingy will continue to fuel my kids and my children's passion for learning.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where they really feel the highest order of purpose in their life.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think this is a zeitgeist right now in terms of sustainability, whether it's sustainable fashion, whether it's sustainable energy creation, usage.
Yes.
And I want to segue into your experience at Harvard. So you spent some time in Harvard recently. What were some of the tools, or what were some of the ideas that you think can be applied in solving this sustainability challenge?
Oh, okay. The program I attended was Advanced Management Program. It was probably the oldest executive program in the world. Started since 1945, with its history dated back to 1930, when it's at the peak of the World War II, when America is trying to be drawn into the World War. So what I really pick up is diversification, because you realize we are so much into our domain knowledge. We think that we are specialists in whatever we think that we have already known so much. But only when you go to a place whereby you are starting with a worldwide diversification of Mexicans, Spaniards, Japanese, Koreans, even people from Lagos, Nigeria, of course, Americans, the Indians, the Chinese. You realize we are in a cocoon, all along in Singapore. When I'm with them, that only tell me there's so much for us to even learn, and so much perspective and blind spots that all along I've been, been blinded. That how come I didn't see it that way? How come I don't think of things or solve things that way? So this really humble. It's a very humbling experience when I actually spent like almost 9 weeks with a living group of 8 people in my living group when we worked through past midnight. That they really, I'm a student as well as a teacher. So I realized probably in Prudential, probably I think I am always a mentor or the teacher, because I have such a strong domain knowledge of what I'm doing, too good in what I'm doing. But sometimes when you're too good in what you're doing, you tend to stereotype. You tend to just like if a carpenter is good with his hammer and nails, he will always, in other businesses, you always use the same concept. I always use my hammer and nails to solve every problem. Yeah, you may be very good in making a furniture as a carpenter, but you can't be using the same framework for every aspect of life, and that really, really humbles me. And because these people are very much more experienced. I'm probably one of the youngest there. There are people who are like in their 50s in merger and acquisitions. They're in CFOs, chartered accountants, strategic thinkers, automobiles, honcho. So what they really shared with me is on a very high level kind of management and thinking, which I felt was, wow, if I have not gone to this, I will probably just be flying on a midway flight. I'm not flying on a 30,000 feet high to really have a helicopter view. What could have. So it makes me probably a stronger, better leader, and how I pick up things. So when I came back, I decided to go back to NUS to pick up 2 modules. One is the principle of marketing, one's the legal environment in business, because I felt I need to be more complete. I need to be not just looking at finance, calculation of your present day future value. I also need to know the legal environment, because there's a lot of times where we, especially with the disruption of technology, there's a lot of ethical issues that's being challenged now. So I learned one thing: the ethical issues of today will determine the legal issues of tomorrow, and the legal issues of tomorrow will then determine the business issues of the day after tomorrow. So I I decided to really look at what kind of ethical issue, why are people not happy? The fundamental question, why people are not happy? Sometimes when you are too comfortable with what you're doing, you will not empathize with what people are really feeling. And that really will, you're actually digging yourself a grave if you continue to think that way. I mean, how come you're not like you don't think like me or that? Then that's where you get into issue. And I really learned this hell lot of big lessons during my Harvard business school days. And when I took on this, I'm now immersed myself in the growth of 20 years old, 21, all this undergraduate, back to very rooted, doing very rigorous NUS law modules, business module with very bright students, from our famous Singapore school system. And I'm a middle-aged man, now immersed in early 20s, they have the kind of jitsu, the kind of energy that I felt energized by that. I start to see things from, oh my God, so these are my future consumers. These are the future pillars of consumerism. And I better understand them. I better know how they even type, what kind of things they use, what kind of idiosyncratic behavior they will have. I can't be thinking that can I only do business with people born in the 70s? Or even early, then that's become very narrow-minded. You're doing business in long term with people even born beyond 2000. 2010. These are your future business and client, and you need to predict and serve their needs. So how do we define a higher purpose in the future is whether you are able to do certain things that is to serve an unmet needs by doing something that's unique or uniquely well for a certain segment of customer, which I define. The millennials are really a very important segment of my business if I were to survive well in the future and not get disrupted. I can't be just thinking about, I've made my thing, there's a property I have, and I'll just draw down from there. If I think like this, I would just draw down and become nothing. I think I don't want that situation when I hit 80 years old, and I don't want to come upon my life that I only serve a certain period of time, and the rest of my time I'm too worthless and useless. I think a lot of retirees had this problem because when they're 60s, 70s, 80s, they felt they're actually out of this system. They're out of the society. They no longer have their big job titles. They no longer are valued for, because a lot of young people, your style is already outdated. Your style is already old school, and it doesn't fit into the norms today. And technology already disrupted you. So they felt useless, and that created a rapid deterioration of their mental toughness, mental fulfillment, and that's where your dementia, Parkinson, and come in. So I can't believe that how can you have if you retire at 65? I don't believe I want to live the last 25 to 30 years of my life living in such a situation where you become irrelevant. You become a parasite, a byproduct of the society. So this is where I wanted to even tell my clients and advise my client, this seriously still a long way to go after 60, 65. You need to keep yourself updated. You need to really work for younger people. Don't get had the mindset that, hey, how can I work for people younger than me by 20 to 30 years? This is very, very wrong. That's why I'm always open to listen to people like Asim, people like Yok Loon, who came, and Lee Chong Han, and then many of them. And I'm always keen to learn from young people because I think they teach me different things. I'm willing to call them boss. They're willing, if they're willing me, they are my bosses. That's my teachers.
That's amazing. I think you definitely have the learner's mindset and the growth mindset, constantly learning new things. I want to ask you, for youngsters or for change makers who are looking to kind of take that leap from becoming, an individual contributor to actually increasing their leverage by managing people and by building products and finding opportunities. What would be the piece of advice that you would have for them?
Okay, when you first start, I felt there's a big mistake, even for a large organization, which can be triggered down to even small startup, is we try to take out all the silos. Because sometimes when you build a product or different product as you go further, it's just like, as you can see, Grab actually had come up with different kind of products. Even Property Guru, as they evolve, they sort of different division looking after different KPIs, different products. But they must understand when they do this, there's a lot of silos that they have created for themselves, which means they are the different customer divisions. They are not talking to one another. You sort of become your own elephant, in whatever you're doing, and you can't integrate with the right vision. So it become a bit messy, very hard to manage. A lot of losses of good people, and you're not as nimble as before. So for young people, you need to. I really felt that you need to sometimes even zoom in. You can't even. Okay, there's a case study which I did versus why Nokia failed. Because if you remember, Nokia has basically dominated the handphone market in the late 90s and the 2000s before all the smartphone came about. It's not that they don't know what's coming. It's not that they don't know, but they are simply too big to even look down at the disruption that is burning them. They simply feel that for me to go down and rejuvenate, rebrand, reinvent everything is too much. I'd rather fail. So I'd rather go and fail and that's it. That's the end of my dynasty. So even before that, even their phone models, if you remember, there's some that can there's a slider, some that have a very nice aesthetic, some are like quirky. So it become so many models that I can't recognize one that is with Nokia because they have so many divisions looking after different stuff. They have some people looking at software, people looking at different models, different manufacturing aspects. They simply become really a multiple handphone manufacturer, and they forgot to take care of the ecosystem, and that's basically how things get disrupted. And when things get simpler and cheaper, and when you are already so pricey and at a premium, your customers start to leave you. They start to forsake you, desert you, and you simply can't understand. But I can't be simply telling myself that I only go for premium customer. I'm going to forsake my bread and butter, and that's what a lot of big companies do. I mean, I want to get better margins, better factor margins. I just move upwards of value chain, but they forgot most of the people are your masses. You get more from the volume than serving a niche top 5% of customers. I mean, and don't forget, and when you don't take care of the 95%, other people will take care of it. And when other people can take care of this 95%.
Hey, something happened. I don't know. We can carry on. Yeah.
Yes, I think so I was just talking about if you don't take care of your 95% and simply focusing on the so-called top 5% premium customer, and that's exactly when others will take care of them. If you take care of the customer, somebody else will take care. And you can be sure they will be coming up. You're giving them the opportunity to come up with a better, cheaper, simpler solution that the so-called top 5% of customers will also forsake you because you become irrelevant. You don't. And if you keep on harping on that, hey, I've been in the business for 50 years. I can't be doing the wrong thing to survive 50 years. And we refuse to think and change. So I would suggest for even young startup, always even set up a division to challenge your status quo. You even come up with a team that you get them out from a headquarters, you get them out of the office. They're operating in somewhere else, and ask them to disrupt you like your enemy. Because with that, they're always finding weaknesses, they're always finding fractures, Achilles heel. So when you can get them to find your Achilles heel before your real enemy finds them, then you start to rejuvenate and be open about it. You say, just like if you ask me Swatch Group, which actually owns, let me see, is it Swatch Group? Yeah, those Swiss watches, actually all along, they know that quartz is cheaper and even more accurate. But it's not that they didn't come up with the invention, but they wait until the Japanese come with the quartz and really killed, maybe I would say, the Swiss watch industry. They call it the quartz crisis. It's not that they didn't know about quartz. They invented the quartz. They know it. But they somehow allow this to go through, and they need the Swatch Group seriously to rebrand the Swiss watch businesses to be a high-end things, and that you're not just looking at the time. You're looking at really a piece of art. You're looking at a piece of identity, a brand for yourself. So it really takes a certain thing, that the Swatch Group founder, I can't remember, it was Hayek or something, Hayek Senior, who passed away a few years ago. So these are major disruption stories that we learn from history. We're fortunate in a way that we have many history and precedent cases that we can learn. And most importantly is, are you open to discuss this with your mentor? Because you may not born at the time of the quartz crisis, but there are certain lessons that you have to relearn, because it's going to happen and repeat itself. History
repeats itself.
So this is where that's what I like about the case study which I did, because we can be looking at for Nokia, for Kodak. You think this is an old story, and Pfizer versus Merck, for some of the legal issue whether you own data, who actually owns your data now, in this data privacy era. And this case study, you can say that is 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but there's certain gist in it. If you look at the whole chronological order of things happening, it's sort of because human nature didn't change much. You can say all that, but human nature is still that. You're born that. Humans are born this way. So from then you can sort of predict a certain strategy, or come up with certain strategy to try to at least mitigate certain disruption or even reinvent yourself to have a new inflection point out of your business. And this is what I felt was extremely, and especially all this thought, and when you're back, so you say, Asim, I would love to go through some of these cases with you, because I felt this is the one that really gets me learning and thinking, and that really comes and get me worried. I may be worrying too much. That's why I have my silver hair is all coming up. But I felt it really set me thinking even more. My level of consciousness, my level of understanding what's happening now in the world, where all the trade war, where all the isolation, it's not the Clinton era that I knew in the 90s, where everything seemed so predictable, seemed so good, seemed so easy, seemed so cushy. But I think human being cannot be just looking at that decade of the Clinton era and think that is the norm. In fact, I felt that that was maybe only the black swan event that we had in our human civilization, and we cannot use that as a norm. In fact, we should be ready for even more black swan events.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the VUCA world, right? It's the volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous world. And so you have to be agile. You have to be constantly challenging status quo, challenging what you believe to be true. I think fallibility, being able to accept that you might be wrong, and you actually know a lot less than that what you should be knowing. So absolutely. I think every time I talk to you, Willy, I get energized to push the accelerator even more on my own learning, and because it's a never-ending pursuit. So before we end this, where can people find more about SG100 Foundation and other work that you do?
Oh, of course, the SG100 Foundation, we've got a website. Is if you can add that in your video, it's SG100Foundation.com. And of course, for those who are we can connect on LinkedIn. I'm actually on LinkedIn, so I think Willy Tan Prudential Assurance, you should be able to find me.
That's great.
I'm probably only Willy Tan in Prudential, so yeah.
That's great.
One last, and of course,
go ahead.
Come. No, you can. One last word.
One last question. You have money to put something on an advertising board, and you can put any message on an advertising board. What would that message be?
Yeah, life is a movement. You got to continuously move. Life is really a movement. Yeah. If you stop moving, seriously, you're dead. Yeah.
That's a good one. Thanks,
Life
Willy.
is a movement. Yeah.
Thanks, Willy. That's a good one. And you're a living example of that. So I look forward to catching up with you again very soon. And thanks again for making the time. I know you're a very busy
I look forward
person.
to see you.
Yes, same here. Thanks, Willy.